Okay, so you know how sometimes your D&D players make decisions that maybe aren't the best decisions and maybe they turn out to regret sometime in the near or distant or maybe even nearer future? Well, something like that happened recently in one of my D&D games. So the players were going against a trio of witches, horrible witches, and they had managed to defeat two of them by getting one of the other witches to essentially take out the other two witches, which was wonderful, which meant there was one witch remaining, Vivian, the transmutation witch. And so they're delving into this dungeon. What was it called? Scarlet Delves. They're going into Scarlet Delves, trying to track down Vivian, the transmutation witch. Now, this was actually the third time they had been into Scarlet Delves. More on that in a little bit. But they finally come into this massive chamber where Vivian, the transmutation witch, is standing. By the way, if you're looking for a D&D adjacent board game perfect for introducing the genre to your friends and family, Dungeon Drifters is exactly what you need. Interdimensional portals have appeared the world over, and vicious monsters have begun to pour forth. But opportunistic heroes stand in their way. Prepare your tire iron, don your beer hat, and take up your bucket of fries. Do you have what it takes to delve into the layers of these foul creatures in search of fame, fortune, and as much loot as your greedy hands can carry? Dungeon Drifters comes with 46 full-color acrylic minis, over 100 gorgeous playing cards, and gobs of dice. Plus, the 3 expansions add even more content. So delve deep and strike true. Can you become the greatest Dungeon Drifter of all? Follow Dungeon Drifters at the link below to get notified when we launch. Don't miss out on the Kickstarter exclusive pricing or the free mini, Vareth the Fallen Protector, that everyone who backs in the first 72 hours will receive. And Vivian knows exactly who they are and why they're there, knows that they're the good guys come to ruin her day. But she's willing to talk with them. But before I can do anything, my players charge in and attack. And one of the very first things that they do is one of the players takes out his ever-smoking bottle and opens it up. So smoke is filling the entire room. The radius of this thing is massive, and it completely obscures everything. My players cannot see a thing. But they were reasoning, at least this one player was reasoning, that it's a witch. We know that she's a spellcaster, and we know that spellcasters are highly dependent upon being able to see what they're trying to cast their spells on. So he figures, if I can obscure the entire area, it's going to be even Steven. She can't see us to cast spells, but we can still, find her and attack her, and we'll do much better that way. The thing that they did not anticipate is that Vivian had minions, and Vivian's minions were vampiric bat folk. So bat folk, imagine like a humanoid bat type creature, still a small sized creature, but there you go. Only vampiric, so undead, nasty little horrible things. But being bat folk, they have, what do they call that? That echolocation type stuff, where they can basically see things without having to see things. So these vampiric bat folk had advantage on all of their attacks against my players at the outset of this battle. Now Vivian was at a slight disadvantage, but she had a few tricks up her sleeve that she could pull. So on the very first round of combat, the monk, Flick, rushes into the room through the cloud of smoke toward Vivian. And then I think four of these vampiric batfolk descend upon him, attack with advantage, and he goes down. And 2 of them, if I remember correctly, are latched onto him, drinking his blood, which means, of course, that he's now going to start taking automatic death saving throw failures. I mean, they're vampires. They're just going to oh, he falls down, let's leave him be. No, they're going to drink his blood. So Flick goes down and Flick is dying, and my players are scrambling to figure out what they're gonna do. They try to fight back a little bit. There's a little bit of back and forth going on, But ultimately, they can see that even though Vivian can't really cast any effective spells in this fog cloud, this smoke cloud, they're at a huge disadvantage. These vampiric batfolk are tearing the crap out of them. Players are losing hit points like crazy. They can't target the things, having a hard time hitting them. It is a big mess. And so my players begin doing this running retreat where they're kind of funny fighting, but they're also retreating at the same time. They're basically trying to withdraw and get the heck out of there, which in D&D 5th edition is a really hard thing to do because of the tax of opportunity and all that kind of stuff. And it's even harder to do when you can't see the enemies and they're attacking you with advantage every single time. It gets very nasty very fast. And so Vivian can sense that they're retreating out of her trap, I suppose, and she's on her little broom, she can fly, and so she flies ahead of them and is waiting outside the dungeon for when they emerge. And as my players begin to emerge from this fog cloud, this horrible trap that they basically set on themselves, Vivian is standing there, and she didn't want to slaughter them to begin with, and she begins to negotiate with them. She begins to try to make a deal with them whereby she'll spare their lives. You see, she's an intelligent witch. She wants them to do something for her. And the fact of the matter is that her vampiric batfolk, although they had the advantage against the characters, she and they were still taking a beating for my characters. So she wanted a little bit of a break herself, and she figures, hey, if I can negotiate with them, maybe because they're all beat up and one of them is practically dead. I think he actually did die. One of them is practically dead or dead, then maybe they're going to negotiate with me and actually go do something of value for her. Because she needs more of these batfolk, which are actually good aligned creatures. She needs more of them so that she can turn them into vampires. So she's like, maybe I can coerce the adventurers to go get some more of these batfolk for me, make a little bit of a deal. Worst case scenario is they renege on it and betray me, but that's okay because I'll be able to rest and get back to full hit points and get my crap in order for the next time they come back. So my players leave and they're like, yes, we will get you more of these batfolk, wink, wink, wink. And they leave to go not at all get the batfolk. And Vivian was like, yeah, I know, you're just kind of screwing with me, but that's okay because I'm gonna rest and I'm gonna set a new ambush for you. Which actually leads me to a previous point I made, that this is the third time that my players were going into Scarlet Delves. The first time they went in, fought a bunch of things, got the crap kicked out of them, and had to retreat and rest. I say had to, but that's a little bit of loose language. They probably could have continued, but you know, characters and players are risk averse. So they retreated once and then they came back. And of course, Vivian had called out to like the nature around, and a bunch of trees animated and became sentient. And as the players were coming in, they had to fight through these trees. What did I make? I made them from like, what do they call those things? The tree things. There are the awakened trees, but there are also treants. Are they called treants in D&D 5th edition? I think they are. They had to fight through these things the second time, or the first time that they had retreated and came back. But they fought some more stuff and they had to retreat a second time. And then when they were coming back in the second time after having retreated, I believe that there was a hydra. A hydra came up out of the river that they had to fight to get back into the dungeon. All right, so now this is the third time now that they're retreating from the dungeon and they're basically taking a long rest and they're getting all their stuff back so they can come try again. And of course, Vivian sees this coming. She knows this is coming. They're not going to get the batfolk. And so she has now laid her next ambush for them, her next trap for them. And as my players are coming back, they see two massive creatures beginning to rise out of the Soulchild River, waiting for them as they come into Scarlet Delves for the third time. And I guess part of my point of telling you this story is twofold. First of all, it makes for a really fun, interesting game session when your players make a very bad decision and then have to scramble to recover from it. It was kind of crummy that Vivian didn't get to cast any of her cool spells or use her cool abilities or light up on her sight, but the vampiric batfolk really took it to them. And then my players were scrambling to get the heck out of there. And even though I'm pretty sure one of the characters died, my players all really seemed to enjoy the game session. It was one of those, like, we had a good idea and it went really bad, and now, holy crap, we got to try to survive here. But the second thing I want to point out is the fact that this is an example of how, a small example of how to create a living, breathing dungeon, where when the players do certain things, the dungeon isn't just static, it doesn't just sit there, but it reacts in response to what they did. In this case, the players kept on retreating and coming back, retreating and coming back. And so Vivian didn't just wait there and like twiddle her fingers and thumbs for them to come back in and kill more of her minions. No, she was animating the world around her, the trees, the tree ants. She was calling to hydras that would rise up out of the Soul Child River. And she was also, and then the third time she called out to other hideous beasts to come out of the river. And so that every time as the players came back in, there was a new challenge waiting for them. There was a new thing that they had to confront because they didn't take care of business the first time around. And I'm not going to tell you how the story ends because we haven't played it out yet. In fact, today is going to be the game session where my players confront whatever it is that came out of this river and Vivian herself at some point. So yeah, I'll just leave you with that right there. I know, I am cruel and horrible. But hey, just watch some more videos and stuff because that's what you're here for, right?